video where today, on 4-Foot Friday, we are going to be starting a new series, Episode 1 of Rebuilding Each NBA Team. Before we get into it, I'm going to explain how this series will work. So we'll be using ESPN Trade Machine. I'll leave the link to that in the description. And we're also going to be using Sim Matchup, using what I created, using ESPN Trade Machine, using the trades I made. And we're going to be competing against the normal team that would be in 2017-18 season. So we start off, we're going to go A through Z through the series. And we start off with the Atlanta Hawks, because obviously A for Atlanta, we'll be starting with them, and we'll go all the way to the Washington Wizards. So for now, let's get into what I'm showing for the Atlanta Hawks rebuild. So we're going to first start off talking about their starting team, a little bit about where I think they need to improve, what I really need to do with this team. And so the starting team is this. At point guard, they have Dennis Schroeder, and they have a backup of Malcolm Delaney. Then at shooting guard, you have Kent Bazemore, Marco Bellinelli, and Tyler Dorsey. At small forward, they will be starting Taurean Prince, Bembry, and Brasino. And at power forward, they have Ilyasova, John Collins, and Mike Muscala. And at center, they have Dwayne Dedmon, Plumlee, and Diamond Stone. So that's the starting lineup. Now, what really do they need to improve in this team? Well, for the first thing, what I'm really looking at is the overall depth of this team. They have Dennis Schroeder at point guard, but I don't really want Malcolm Delaney starting in this sim matchup. And then at shooting guard, I think it's fine. Kent Bazemore, overpaid, so maybe we can get something out of that. Kent Bazemore, maybe we can get a good quality shooting guard, a good quality small forward, kind of trade Bazemore for another type of that caliber player. Small forward, Taurean Prince, pretty good. We just have to see what happens there. If we get a good trade, we'll take it. Maybe have a backup better than Bembry and Brasino. Maybe we get, a Jason Tatum type player. And then at power forward, we have Ilyasova, Collins, and Muscala. Fairly fine. Again, we have to see what happens there. We have to see what moves we make. And at center, Dwayne Dedmon, Plumlee, and Stone, which is something I want to improve. Something that I really it's good. It's not great. So let's get into the second part of this video, which is using the ESPN Trade Machine. So I forgot to tell a rule that we have. I forgot to explain a rule that I have. I have the rule that when you make a trade, you have to make sure that that trade works in the ESPN Trade Machine in terms of the salary cap it works. But the other thing too, which makes this series incredibly hard, and I have to try different types of trades, making sure something works, is that in order for me to make this trade successful, it needs for the other team to have in terms of how much wins it will give the other team, it has to give a positive amount of wins. So I can make a crazy blockbuster trade, LeBron James to Giannis Antetokounmpo. And I may do this, there's reasons to do it. Maybe Giannis in a pick. Maybe if you're the Cavs, you do this. You don't, but maybe you do that type of thing. But if this trade works in the trade machine, where it gives Giannis +2 in terms of win differential to the Cavs, then I can take LeBron James if I'm doing a Bucks rebuild. However, if I'm doing if I'm doing Derrick Rose for Chris Paul, and I'm trying to give Chris Paul away and I'm trying to get Derrick Rose, right? If I wanted to do that trade and it were to say Derrick Rose, Derrick Rose is is better than Chris. For some reason, if it says Derrick Rose is better than Chris Paul, I'm not actually allowed to do that trade. If I'm trying to give Chris Paul away, but they don't, that type of thing. If it gives a negative win differential, even if it just doesn't affect the team, it's just +0, -0, that type of thing, then that does not count either. It has to be in a plus, which makes this series really hard, and it makes me really go in depth. Who do I get? Who do I not get? So let's go into our NBA ESPN trade machines. So the first trade we are making is going to be, it's going to be Middleton and Maker for Kent Bazemore. So what I was really doing with this trade is, obviously Kent Bazemore has a little bit of an overpaid salary, and by that I mean he's crazy overpaid player. And what I want to do is kind of give him away, which he has value for it. Obviously 14.1 mil for 3 years is crazy for Middleton. But Middleton's a very good quality player. He's good on that defensive end of the game. And the thing I really liked about Middleton is he played shooting guard, small forward, power forward. He's very flexible in what position he can play, which I noticed for a lot of the Bucks players, you know. You have players like Malcolm Brogdon, he can play both guards. You have players like Jabari Parker, he can play small forward, power forward. And then you also have Chris Middleton and Giannis, Giannis can basically play all 5 positions, and Middleton can play 3 positions. So that's exactly why I went for Chris Middleton. And the other player I went for, which is crazy, because in this trade machine, he doesn't have a lot of value, and it's Thon Maker. And I think this guy could actually come up in a lot of my rebuilds through this whole series. It's because in this episode when we're rebuilding the Hawks, you have the Thon Maker and you have the Chris Middleton. However, because Thon Maker was coming off the bench behind Greg Monroe for a bunch of the season, not until the playoffs he really started, because of that factor, we are able to get Thon Maker he has a cheap salary, and we are able to get Chris Middleton and Thon Maker for Bazemore, because basically what this trade is Middleton for Bazemore. And personally, I'd rather have Middleton for Bazemore. But if you add Thon Maker, I'd really like that even more. And in terms of the projected win, the Atlanta Hawks are going to lose 2 games, and the Bucks are going to lose 1 game. So this, as you can see with that rule that they have to have winning, they get +1 wins from this. So this trade works. In the second trade, what I basically decided to do is get more depth around that guard position. Because if you look at the team, you have Schroeder, great player, and then shooting guard, you had Bazemore. We got rid of him for Middleton. So I have Middleton and I have Schroeder, right? Then you still have Delaney, Bellinelli, and Dorsey. And as much as I like Bellinelli, I like Bellinelli, but he's just not that good quality as a shooting guard. And Delaney's not even close. And we can't bring Tyler Dorsey up as he's a rookie and he's not proven, obviously, as a second-round player. So what I basically did is try and get more depth. So on the screen, you will be seeing Ricky Rubio, Dante Exum, Rodney Hood for Dennis Schroeder. Now, looking at this trade, you may be going, are you crazy? You're giving away Dennis Schroeder for these 3 players that are not that good. Well, not as good as Schroeder. But you have to look at it in terms of depth and how I'm not going to want a player to play 45 minutes on this Hawks team. No one's that good to play those amount of minutes. So if we want to have a lot of different players playing 25 minutes each, that's why I went for this trade, because the 2 other trades that, in terms of trade 3 you're going to see and trade 1 you're going to see, we traded 2 players for 1 player. So we need more of that depth. In this trade, we got rid of Dennis Schroeder. Ricky Rubio, good passing point guard. He's a good player in terms of passing the ball to us scorers. You obviously have Chris Middleton, he's a pretty good 3-and-D type player, probably better on the defensive end. But we did get Rodney Hood on this trade, and I think Rodney Hood's a great player because he can shoot that 3 ball. He's definitely very good at shooting the 3-point shot. So that's why I went with him. And he did have a not that good season as he did the season before. He had a pretty good season the season before. We were expecting good things from him, and he didn't end up having that great of a season. So bringing him on, maybe he can give that same impact for the Atlanta Hawks. And so we give away Dennis Schroeder. They're getting +4 wins from this, which makes sense. We're getting -3 wins. Makes sense. But in terms of depth, now instead of playing Delaney, we'll have Ricky Rubio and Dante Exum, right? So we have Ricky Rubio, we have Dante Exum in, and then as a 3rd string, we have Delaney, which is perfect for that point guard position. And in that shooting guard position, we have Rodney Hood with the backup of Marco Bellinelli, which, that's pretty good. If you ask me, that's pretty good. And I know Marco Bellinelli, I said before, he's not that much of a quality backup. But you think about it, in this series, we're only going to be playing against the starting team. We're going to be playing against Marco Bellinelli. He's going to be basically playing against Marco Bellinelli. So for now, that's fine. Rodney Hood will be starting over him when it comes to playing the Hawks in the sim matchup. Again, I'll leave the links for ESPN Trade Machine and sim matchup. I'll leave the links in the description below, so make sure to check that out. And so we've come to our third trade. Obviously, we made those two, I think, great trades for this team. Hopefully it pays off when we're playing the original Hawks. And now trade number 3. And this is more, we're going to be trading Ersan Ilyasova and Bembry. So we're trading Ilyasova and Bembry for Jaylen Brown. Now, I know what you're thinking when you look at this trade. This trade looks really good. Bembry's not a proven player. Bembry's not really going to get any minutes. And then you get Ilyasova. Ilyasova's a good player, but not as good as, I think, Jaylen Brown. 4 year, 3 year, 4 mil, more like 5 mil, 3 years. And so what I think with this trade is, it's just, we're only getting rid of Bembry and Ilyasova. And the thing is, on July 13th, 2017, the Hawks reportedly agreed to a 1 year, $6 million contract. So what I basically did is it says here there's a glitch that it didn't sign yet, Ersan Ilyasova. So it just says 0 years because it's trying to say that he's a free agent. So I put another player in that makes that $6 million just to make sure that the trade works. And it does. So we get Jaylen Brown in as our small forward, which means we have a good point guard. We have a good backup point guard. We have a good shooting guard, an okay backup shooting guard. I believe our small forward is the weakest position, but getting in Jaylen Brown is definitely a positive because at power forward, we have Middleton, even though we could have played him at small forward, but I didn't want to risk playing Plumlee at power forward. And then our center position is very good with Maker, Dedmon, and Stone. So let's get into our actual revamped lineup and what exactly it looks like. So we changed a lot at that point guard position. We obviously had shooter before, but point guard position we have as our number 1. We're going to be starting Ricky Rubio. Why do I think he's good? He can pass to Hood. He'll shoot the 3 ball. And really, he can pass to Maker. He can get into that post-game score really well. Marco Bellinelli's a good shooter. And then you also have Taurean Prince, very good shooter. And then you have Jaylen Brown, okay shooter, but, good mid-range shooter. But I just wanted that passer to kind of bring that excitement to the game, make the flashy passes, get the fans into it. It's just more getting that good passer on your team. If you have a team you have a 5-star, you have a team and you have the 5 best players in the league, the one fear of that is maybe they all go attacking, maybe they go, okay, I want to score. And that's, with the 5 best players on the team, you'd obviously do really well. However, if you have 5 shooters in the lineup, you may not do that well if you don't have a good playmaker. Even with the Warriors, we see a good playmaker in Stephen Curry. Kyrie Irving and LeBron James are good playmakers. You know what I mean? The Spurs, Tony Parker, he's getting on that older side, but he's still a good playmaker. And then you could even say on the Celtics, Isaiah Thomas, good playmaker. All these good teams that we're seeing, good playmakers. We can even go to the Wizards and say John Wall. Every team that we see is successful has a good playmaker, which is why I put Ricky Rubio, a good playmaker, on this revamped lineup. And as a backup, Dante Exum is great. If we don't need that passer, we bring in Dante Exum because we saw a great summer league performance from Dante Exum, and that's pretty much why I put him into this team because I think he can do a great job carrying that. He can do a great job carrying that Jazz team. If and indeed Rubio doesn't perform, as I know many fans in this league do not like him as much as other point guards. It's the same thing with Rubio, Rondo, all of those players that are very good passers, but this league, people say, is sometimes you don't need that passer, you need that three-point shooter, you need that shooter in your lineup. But I think Ricky Rubio can do a great job at that point guard position, as I do like those pass first point guards, as they can really lead that team, have that leadership in and around when we get to the playoffs. If that happens. As our backup, I said Exum. Obviously, you can bring in the Heat if Rubio doesn't perform. And then our third string is Delaney. At shooting guard, we have Rodney Hood, great three-point shooter, as I said before. Backup, Marco Bellinelli. And then we have Tyler Dorsey. As a small forward, we have Jaylen Brown, John Collins, and Darion Prince, that's probably our most stacked position. We don't have one player that stands out over all three of them, but all of those players can play really well for us. We can play even 15 minutes for each player, just a little bit here and there, and they can all perform at very nice levels. And then power forward, we're going to play Middleton as our starting power forward. As I said, he can play shooting guard, small forward, power forward. And then we have Plumlee as a backup and Mike Muscala as our third stringer. And then finally we have center, Thon Maker, which was unbelievable how we were able to get him. We have Dwayne Dedmon, and we have Diamond Stone. So that's it for our revamp lineup. That's it for all the moves we'll make. And now we're going to head over to Sim Matchup, where we're going to basically see a game-by-game series of this Hawks regular team versus the Hawks revamp team. So in game 1, this is what happened. 88-79. Who won? We won. The Hawks revamp won 88-79. Not a high-scoring game, and you'll see that throughout the series how none of these games are that high-scoring. However, we saw Dedmon actually the game MVP. As a backup center, he was the game MVP. He had 12 points, but what really was outstanding was 14 rebounds. And what really stood out to me in this game was we led at 10 at halftime, and after halftime, we just kept on pushing ahead, steamrolling this Hawks team, but it was because of that leading by 10 at halftime. If we didn't lead at halftime, we still probably would have won. But let's say it was a tied game at halftime. They did have a better second half, so obviously the score would have been 78-79. They would have won if we didn't get those points on the board. And then game 2, 85-81. Who won? The regular Hawks team. Yes, it is a 1-1 series. Again, a not very high-scoring game. 85-81. Mike Muscala was actually the game MVP. So maybe for us, it's time that we don't play Muscala as a third stringer. Maybe we do bring him up as a backup, drop Plumlee to that second stringer. He had 16 points, 10 boards, but what really was great from Mike Muscala, 5 offensive boards, which is outstanding from Mike Muscala. And then we actually almost won. We scored 6 more points in the fourth quarter, but we just needed to push a little bit more, maybe get on a big run. It didn't happen. Game 3 now. I'll be happy to say that we won 85-80. Another very low-scoring game. So far, not a team has gotten over 90 points. Obviously, we were just shy of 5, and in the first game, we were just shy of 2 points. And so, we won. Dwayne Dedmon was the game MVP again. 16 points, 14 boards, and 4 blocks. So, at this point, I did bring him up. I did start him as our not shooting guard. I started him as our center. And the regular team actually led by 7 in the first quarter. And then in the third quarter, we scored 11 more points. If we didn't have that big third quarter run, we wouldn't have won that game. But we ended up having it and clinching this game by 5 points. In the 4 game, finally a team scores over 100 points. But is it us? Yes, it is. We scored 103 points, stopped them to 83 points. We won that game by 20 points. Mike Muscala, game MVP. So he is the backup. However, he's doing things. Maybe we look to start him again. Because I did decide to start him and Dedmon next to each other in that game. Drop Thon Maker to the bench. Drop Chris Middleton back to small forward and start Muscala. and it paid off. So I am going to do that in Game 5 because we led by 20. Look how much that game helped. Mike Muscala scored 14 points and had 8 rebounds, and we shot 48.3%, while this regular team shot 39%. And it was really the first blowout of the series. But just looking at those numbers, 48.3% from 3, it really shows how in depth sim matchup can go. How really this programming they have is great. So I really do think you should check it out. It's a great simulation game. And then Game 5, 83-78. This could be the closing game, and is it? Yes, it is. So we won the series 4-1. In this Game 5, we outplayed, but we scored 5 more points than them. We won 83-78. Low-scoring game again. And Dwayne Dedmon, game MVP, 14 points, 18 boards, which is absurd. As we did the same thing. We played Middleton at small forward, dropped Jaylen Brown to the bench, and then we did start Mike Muscala and Dwayne Dedmon dropping Thon Maker to the bench. So it really did prove to work. And Dwayne Dedmon was the game MVP, 14 points, 18 rebounds. Great playing from him throughout this whole series. He's probably the biggest surprise. And the Hawks have him in real life, so we'll see how he does in real life for the Hawks. And 32 and 22 in the fourth. We scored 10 more points than them in that fourth quarter, obviously scoring 32 and them scoring 22. And that's really what won the series, that fourth quarter. If they had, 5 more points in that quarter, it would have gone to overtime and they could have possibly took this to Game 6. All they had to do was score 2 3-pointers, and they would have actually took this series. But instead, we win 4-1. I'm really happy because it took me a long time to do this, try and get trades to work out, because sometimes I would get a trade to work out. However, it's not what I wanted. So I really took my time to try and make the best trade for this franchise. Hopefully we have success in the other ones. But for the overview, series MVP has to be Dwayne Dedmon. He had an amazing series, In that last game, he had 18 rebounds. He really just, he took me by surprise where I was like, we need to get another center and maybe Thon Maker to come in with that amazing trade for Bazemore, Middleton and Thon Maker. And it ended up being one of the best players on the team at small forward and a great backup to bring on at center. But Dwayne Dedmon took that starting center after, not poor, I would say, for the first 3 games from Thon Maker, but not as good as when Dwayne Dedmon stepped into that starting lineup. And really, our team always came out strong. However, it was the defense that won this series. It wasn't the offense. We only had one game where we scored over, I think, 90 points. Yeah, one game where we scored over 90 points. It was really, we didn't have that great offensive game, and this regular Hawks didn't either. So we are going to see in this regular season, can their defense take them far? The Hawks always take us by surprise, how well they do. I think, they lost Kyle Korver, they lost Paul Millsap, they lost Al Horford. They can still do well because Mike Budenholzer is a great coach, and he always seems to put this Hawks team into success. And this rebound was a success. So I'm really happy with this. Make sure to hit that like button if you enjoy this series. Make sure to hit that like button if you want more. If you want more episodes to come out on this. If we could hit 5 likes, that would be great. If you didn't like this video, though, feel free to hit the dislike button. Feel free to, if you do hit the dislike button, please put in the comment section why you didn't like this video and how I can improve my video, whether it's the quality of the videos or whatnot. And also, if you don't like the series, you can hit the dislike button. I take everything into feedback. Make sure to vote in my poll. I believe it's the top right. It's that eye thingy. And make sure to vote whether you want this series to continue or whether you don't want the series to continue. Check out my other videos. Thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. And have a great 4-Foot Friday.